Section 1. The approach to St. Nazaire, the 28th of March, 1942. St. Nazaire, France. The Atlantic wind comes in low and sharp, carrying salt spray that turns every metal surface cold to the touch. The water is black glass until it breaks into pale foam under the bow, and each slap against the hull sounds louder than it should, like the night itself is listening. Above, there is no moon worth trusting, only a ceiling of cloud that smears the stars into nothing. On the bridge, a sailor keeps his eyes forward and his hands steady, but his throat is dry. You can feel it in the way he swallows, in the way he does not look down at the deck where men move like shadows. Everyone has learned the same lesson out here. If you stare too long at the water, it stares back. The ship is HMS Campbeltown, and she is pretending to be someone else. Painted and altered to confuse a distant watcher, she pushes toward a harbor that was built to swallow big steel. Somewhere ahead is a dry dock gate, the kind designed for giants. If that gate stays standing, it can shelter and repair the largest German warships that might break into the Atlantic lanes. If it falls, a door slams shut on a threat that has haunted convoys and coastlines for too long. That is the math the planners cannot escape. One dock, one target, one night. And a problem that sounds impossible when you say it out loud. Get a destroyer into the mouth of an occupied port under guns, and searchlights ram the dock gate like a battering ram. Then light a fuse after impact and still somehow give men a chance to get out. The raid has a name, Operation Chariot, but names are tidy things. Out here, the night is not tidy. It is wet rope and diesel stink. It is boots slipping on darkened planks. It is the quiet click of metal on metal as someone checks a latch, then checks it again. Clock. The first countdown is the tide. There is a narrow window when the water depth will let a ship run in fast and still have enough room to hit the gate with force. Miss that window and you do not just arrive late. You arrive wrong. You arrive slow. You arrive as a target that cannot maneuver. The second countdown is even crueler. Once the ship hits the clock, does not stop. Somewhere inside Campbeltown, explosives have been packed into her belly. Records differ on the exact arrangement and timing devices used, but the outcome is consistent. There is a delayed detonation built into the plan because if it went off too soon, it would never reach the gate. Too late, and the men on shore might be trapped in a harbor that wakes up fully armed. Stakes. If this fails, the dock stays open and every convoy sailor knows what that could mean. More ships hunted, more routes altered, more nights where the horizon turns into a question mark and you do not know if dawn is real. But the stakes are also personal, close enough to hear breathing through wool scarves. The men on this ship have to get in, and for many of them get out by small craft under fire and confusion. There is no clean exit. There is only a gamble that speed, surprise, and nerve can carve a path through a place designed to stop them. The rule against a harbor full of guns is simple. You cannot give it time to aim, so everything becomes discipline. Lights out, no careless shouting, no unnecessary movement. Men speak in short phrases close to the ear. A hand signal here. A tap on the shoulder there. You do not move like heroes. You move like a crew that knows the smallest mistake can be the loudest sound in the world. Down below, in cramped compartments that smell like oil and paint, the small detail that will matter later is almost invisible. A length of cord and a set of timing marks protected from moisture. As carefully as a letter kept dry in a pocket. Somebody checks it with fingers that are already numb, not because they doubt it works, but because they know the sea can ruin anything it touches. Switch point of view. On shore, a German sentry stands where the harbor lights cast long reflections over the water. He has been staring into darkness for hours, listening to distant engines that might be fishing boats or might be something else. He is tired enough that every shape looks familiar. Then he sees a silhouette coming in. A warship, low and fast, not acting like a fishing boat at all. But it flies the wrong signals. It looks at first glance like one of theirs, or at least like something that belongs in these waters. In the confusion of night, recognition can be a trap. He hesitates just long enough to ask the question before he raises the alarm. That hesitation is everything. Back on Campbeltown, someone on the bridge sees the first sweep of a searchlight. The beam skates across the water, then climbs the ship's side. For a moment, it feels like standing under a magnifying glass. Every man becomes a shadow pinned to a wall. The bridge holds its breath. Mini payoff, the beam passes. The harbor does not erupt. Not yet. You can feel a tiny release move through the ship. Not relief exactly, more like a hand loosening on a clenched rope. They have bought seconds. In a raid like this, seconds are a kind of currency. Now the human mind does something strange. It starts bargaining. If the searchlight passed once, maybe it will pass again. If the sentry hesitated, maybe the next will hesitate too. Hope tries to crawl in, but the crew does not let it settle. They keep their faces hard. They keep their hands busy, because the clock keeps moving. Somewhere forward, assault teams wait with gear that feels heavier when you cannot see your own hands. They are not thinking in speeches. They are thinking in objects. A strap, a handle, a line to follow, the shape of a doorway, the sound of a boot on steel, and they are thinking about what happens after the impact. There is a particular fear that comes with a plan like this. You are aiming a ship like a spear, but you are also riding the spearhead. There is no way to pretend you are not. The water narrows. The lights multiply. The harbor mouth is close enough now that you can smell land through the salt, a faint mix of smoke and damp stone. Then the night changes its tone. A sharper challenge call carries over the water. A light snaps on again, stronger, held longer. A second beam joins it, then a third. The ship's disguise has limits, and the harbor's suspicion has teeth. On the bridge, the captain's jaw tightens. Someone reaches for a signal flag, then stops. Someone else watches the shoreline, waiting for the first muzzle flash. You can almost hear the numbers being counted in his head. Distance, speed, time, clock minutes to the gate. And only moments before the port fully understands what is coming. The rule against panic is simple. You do not argue with the plan once the run has begun, and the plan is now a straight line. Behind the bridge, a sailor grips a rail so hard his fingers ache. He tells himself a story he can live inside, just hold steady until impact. Then do what you trained to do, then run. But another story pushes in uninvited. What if the harbor wakes up before they reach the gate? What if the explosives get wet, or the timing slips, or the ship hits wrong, too shallow too soon? What if the dock gate holds? The sea is still black. The searchlights are not. And as the first shots begin to crack across the water, Campbeltown keeps charging toward the dock, knowing that the hardest choice is already behind them, and the most dangerous one is still ahead. Section 2. The last run and the impact. The first shots do not sound like the movies. They are smaller, flatter, almost bored, as if the harbor is clearing its throat. Then the sound stacks echo on echo, and suddenly you can tell the difference between warning, fire, and intent. On Campbeltown, the bridge does not flinch. It cannot. The bow keeps cutting forward, and the distance to the dock gate shrinks into something you can measure with your eyes instead of your imagination. The harbor mouth is a corridor of darkness that keeps trying to turn into daylight as searchlights pin the water and rake the ship's sides. Clock. 5 minutes becomes a hard number. Then 4. Then 3. A sailor near the rail can see the spray off the bow, glowing white in the lights. He tastes cordite in the salt air. He tells himself to keep breathing through his nose because if he breathes through his mouth, the fear feels louder. You can almost sense every man doing the same private arithmetic. Stakes. If the ship is stopped here, the raid collapses into a trap. The gate stays intact. The explosives never meet steel. The commandos become men without land, without speed, without surprise. Even if you survive the first exchange, you do it while the whole port wakes up gun by gun, light by light. The rule against a defended harbor is simple. You cannot let it set the tempo. So the bridge forces the tempo. A signal lamp flickers. A reply flashes back from shore, a challenge that demands the right answer. The crew has rehearsed these moments like a prayer you recite without thinking. Someone answers with the practiced pattern, buying another breath, another stretch of water. Mini payoff for a heartbeat, the firing pauses. The searchlights hesitate as if the harbor is still deciding what it is seeing. And this is where I want to speak to you as the host for a moment. Here on Soldiers' Lost Voices, we chase nights like this because they are built from choices you can almost feel in your hands. If you want more stories where small details decide everything, tap like, leave a comment with what you would have done on that bridge, and come back for the next part. The pause ends. A heavy weapon cracks from the shore and the sound is deeper, more certain. Splinters jump from the ship's superstructure. Metal rings. A man ducks without thinking, and then forces himself upright because ducking does not move the ship faster. One technical detail is all you need to understand what happens next. Campbeltown is coming in too fast to turn away cleanly. That speed is not bravery. It is a requirement. If you arrive soft, you bounce. If you bounce, you lose the gate. Switch point of view. On the quay, a German officer runs into the light coat, flapping boots, striking stone. He has a field phone pressed to his ear, voice tight, trying to pull pieces of information into a single picture. A ship is entering the basin. It looks wrong. It is under fire and still closing. That should not happen. Ships under fire usually slow or turn or smoke or retreat. This one does none of those. His instinct says it is a decoy, a distraction, something meant to draw attention while another threat slips in. But the angle is too direct, too deliberate. It is as if the ship is not aiming for water at all. It is aiming for a wall. He shouts orders. Men scramble to swing guns. Searchlights lock on harder. The harbor becomes a stage where the lights are too bright and the actors are moving too fast. Back on Campbeltown, the dock gate is now a shape that fills the world. Steel ribs, concrete edges, the mouth of the dry dock like a jaw. You can feel the ship's vibration as engines drive against the water. A man on the bridge watches the gate and realizes there is no longer room for doubt. Clock, 90 seconds. Below decks, assault teams brace. You are not standing for this. You are crouched, one hand on a rail, one hand on your gear, waiting for the moment when the ship stops being a ship and becomes a collision. In the dimness, someone thinks of the cord and the timing marks sealed against moisture, not as a weapon, as a promise. The sea has not touched it. It is still dry. It is still waiting. The rule against confusion is simple. Do not let impact scatter you. So they anchor themselves, a knee against a bulkhead, a shoulder into a corner, a grip on a strap. Men close their eyes for half a second, not to pray, but to make the moment smaller. Then the world slams. The sound is not one sound. It is a stack of sounds. The bow hits the gate with a wrenching grind. Steel shrieks. The deck lurches as if the ocean itself has grabbed the ship by the throat. Men are thrown forward and then caught by their own discipline. Something overhead breaks loose and crashes. The air fills with dust and the bitter taste of paint. For a breath, everything is still. Mini payoff, the bow has bitten into the gate and held. The ship has not bounced away. That is the success they needed, and it arrives in the ugliest form possible, a wrecking blow that turns a vessel into a wedge. The bridge knows it immediately. The captain does not need to announce it. The change in motion says it all. Now the second part of the plan begins, the part the mind avoids thinking about until it is unavoidable. Getting off. Assault teams surge forward, hatches open. The first men step onto metal that is still trembling from the impact. The harbor is fully awake now, and the gunfire is no longer questioning. It is answering. Switch point of view. On a small craft nearby, a commando looks up and sees Campbeltown jammed against the gate, lit by searchlights like a captured animal. He feels a savage pride rise in his chest, and he crushes it down because pride is loud. He forces his attention to the shore, to the silhouettes of buildings and cranes, to the places where the raid must strike next. Clock. The tide is still moving. The window that let them reach the gate will not hold forever. Extraction will only get harder as minutes pass and routes close. Stakes. The men on shore have to do their work quickly, knowing their exit is not guaranteed, knowing the harbor can turn into a cage. And inside the ship unseen, the delayed detonation is now a silent third player, keeping its own time, indifferent to courage, indifferent to plans. The rule against being trapped is simple. You move before the net tightens. So they move. Boots hit the dockside. Shadows break into sprints between pools of light. Orders are shouted, then swallowed by the roar of weapons and the crash of waves against stone. Somewhere in the chaos, the cord and timing marks remain untouched, sealed away, waiting to become the loudest statement the raid will ever make. And as the teams fan out into the port, the question that hangs over every step is not whether they reach the gate. It is whether they can get out before the ship's hidden clock reaches zero. Section 3. On the docks and inside the trap. You step off the ship and the air is different. Less sea, more stone. Smoke from somewhere inland mixes with the salt, and every sound bounces off walls and cranes and warehouse faces, returning to you slightly delayed, like the port is repeating what it hears. Campbeltown is wedged into the dock gate behind you, her bow pressed hard into steel, her deck still trembling as if she is trying to shake herself awake. Searchlights keep dragging across her hull, and the beams are so bright they turn rain mist into pale threads. In that light, men running along the quay look like cutouts, flat shadows with hard edges. Clock. The first minutes after impact are the only minutes that belong to you. After that, the port's coordination catches up. Routes close. Positions harden. The harbor stops reacting and starts hunting. A commando moves with his head down, not because he is afraid to see, but because he is afraid of being seen. You can feel the dock's surface under your boots, slick with spray and grime. Somewhere close, a machine gun starts again, and the sound is like ripping cloth. The rule against a fortified place is simple. You do not stay in the open. So they fold into cover, behind stacks, along walls, through narrow gaps between sheds. Every team is chasing a job that is small on paper and enormous in consequence. A door to be breached, a mechanism to be disabled, a line to be cut, a charge to be placed. Nothing glamorous, everything urgent. Stakes. If the teams on shore cannot complete their tasks, the raid turns into only a ram. A dramatic collision that does not close the dock for long, or does not close it the way it needs to. And if the extraction route collapses, the survivors do not sail home. They become men stranded in a hostile maze, with the tide sliding out beneath them. Switch point of view. On the far side of the basin, a German petty officer runs toward a gathering crowd of defenders. He is shouting into the noise, trying to sort it into meaning. His eyes keep returning to the destroyer jammed into the gate. A ship does not sit like that by accident. The angle is too perfect. The impact is too committed. and then his mind catches a glint where it should not be. Not blood, not fire, something calmer, something that does not belong to a normal wreck. He sees men moving on the deck with a kind of purpose that does not match a ship that has just crashed. He sees faces turned inward toward hatches and ladders toward compartments that should be empty. He does not know what is inside, but he knows enough to feel the hair on his arms lift. He shouts for more men. He shouts for someone with authority. He shouts because shouting is the only tool he has left. Back near the gate, a commando crouches behind a low wall. He touches the rough stone with one hand and checks his equipment with the other, not because he doubts it is there, but because touch is how you keep control when the world is too loud. One technical detail, just one, and it matters because it changes how they move. Their demolition charges are timed and carried in tight bundles meant to be placed quickly and left behind without delay. That means every second you hesitate is a second you donate to the enemy. Mini payoff. A team reaches a target point and gets a charge set without being pinned down. A small click, a small twist, a small confirmation in the dark. It is not victory, but it is proof that the plan is still alive. Then the return fire finds them again. The port has angles, catwalks, windows. Every light that swings your way is a finger pointing. A man breaks into a sprint, crossing an open stretch between two buildings. You can hear his breath sharp and fast. You can hear his boots slap stone. He makes it to the far side and presses himself into shadow chest heaving. For half a second he laughs under his breath. Not joy, not relief, something like disbelief. The rule against being overwhelmed is simple. You keep moving even when your body begs you to freeze. So they move. But movement has a cost, and you feel it in the way the teams start to thin, the way paths start to look less like routes and more like traps. A small craft pulls away from the quay, trying to find a channel out, and you can sense the tide tugging at it like a hand on a sleeve. Another craft hesitates, then commits, then disappears into darkness as if swallowed. Switch point of view. Inside Campbeltown, below the deck, there is a quiet that feels impossible. It is not peaceful. It is muffled. The ship's hull takes the outside chaos and turns it into vibrations, distant thumps, and occasional sharp cracks that travel through steel. A sailor moves through a narrow passage with a hooded lantern that barely gives light. He is not a commando. He is a man assigned to a task that no one cheers for. He checks a sealed space where the delayed detonation is waiting, and he sees the small detail again. The cord and timing marks protected from moisture kept dry, as if dryness itself is a weapon. He touches the covering with fingertips and pulls back fast, like the thing might bite him. Records differ on precisely how the delay was achieved and who had access at this stage, but the outcome is consistent. The mechanism is alive, patient, indifferent. It does not care how brave you are. It only cares about time. Clock. The hidden clock is now counting toward a moment no one on deck can see and no one on shore can hear. Stakes. If the delay fails early, it could cost the raiders their own escape before they even understand what happened. If it fails late, defenders might climb aboard, inspect, even celebrate, never realizing the ship is not finished speaking. The sailor backs away. He takes the lantern with him. He does not want to be near it when the time comes. And yet he also cannot stop thinking about it because it is the only certainty left in a night built on uncertainty. Back on the quay, the commandos begin to feel the squeeze. Lights push them into shadows. Shadows turn into dead ends. You can hear shouted orders in German, now more organized, closer, as if the port is learning the shape of the raid by touch. Mini payoff. Another team slips through a gap and reaches cover, dragging a small piece of gear that matters more than it looks. They do not stop to admire the fact they made it. They only nod once and keep going. The rule against capture is simple. You choose your exit before the exit chooses you. So men start making choices with the speed of instinct. Some turn back towards small craft. Some push deeper, hoping to link up with others. Some crouch and wait for a moment when the gunfire shifts and a path appears. And through it all, behind them, Campbeltown remains stuck to the gate like a clenched fist while the sealed cord and its timing marks keep waiting. The port believes it has contained the chaos, but the ship is still holding its breath, and the next exhale will change everything. Section 4. The Breakout and the Narrowing Exits. The port is learning fast. What began as scattered alarms becomes a pattern. Searchlights stop wandering and start holding. Gunfire stops guessing and starts cutting off lanes. Every time you think you have found a pocket of darkness, it gets stitched closed by a beam and a shout. A commando presses his back to a damp wall and listens. Not for hero music, for gaps. For the moment when one weapon pauses to reload, when one voice turns away, when the echo of boots shifts direction. You can feel the stone breathing cold through your coat. You can feel your own heartbeat trying to climb into your throat. Clock 10 minutes since impact becomes a boundary line. Past it, the harbor's defenders are no longer surprised. They are organized. Past it, every move costs more. The rule against a place that is tightening around you is simple. You do not run in straight lines. So men zigzag through the port's geometry. They cut behind machinery. They crawl under chains that drip seawater. They pause in doorways, then vanish again using shadows like tools. Switch point of view. On a raised walkway, a German NCO points with a gloved hand, voice sharp. He is not thinking about honor or fear. He is thinking about angles. A running man is an angle. A doorway is an angle. The wrecked ship jammed into the gate is an angle. Everything can be turned into a line of fire if you know where to stand. He barks for reinforcements. He barks for someone to bring a light closer. He believes the way people believe when they finally feel control returning, that the intruders can be pinned and crushed by simple coordination. Then he hears a sound from the direction of the gate, not an explosion, not yet. Something smaller, a metallic grind that should not still be happening. He looks and sees movement on the destroyer's deck. Not frantic, purposeful. Men going down, then back up as if the ship still has work to do. He stares at the hull and the question forms on his face before he can stop it. Why would anyone stay near a wreck like that? Back in the alleys of the port, a raiding team reaches a target point they were told to find in training. In daylight, it would be obvious. At night, under fire, everything looks like everything else. They confirm by touch. A particular hinge, a particular handle, a particular shape. When you cannot trust your eyes, you trust your hands. One technical detail is enough to understand how fast this has to happen. Their charges are set to function on delayed fuses because the work must be done and then abandoned. That delay is not comfort. It is a deadline you carry in your mind. Mini payoff. The charge is placed and the team pulls away without being pinned in place. A small success that feels like a breath stolen from a closed room. But the harbor answers immediately. A burst of fire rakes the corner they just left. Chips of stone jump. The air fills with dust that tastes like old brick. The men do not stop. Stopping is how you become a memory. Stakes. Every task completed buys the raid its purpose. Every task left undone makes the collision at the gate a gesture instead of a lock on the dock. And every minute spent fighting for a street corner is a minute not spent reaching the water and the small craft that are supposed to take survivors out. You can see the tide in the way the waterline looks lower than it did minutes ago, in the way ladders down to the edge feel longer. The sea is not waiting for you. It is moving away. The rule against being surrounded is simple. You pick an exit before the exits become ideas. so men start turning back. Some do it in pairs, covering each other as they move. Some do it alone, sprinting between light and shadow like an animal crossing a road. Others do it too late, trapped in a pocket where the port's walls make a perfect funnel. Switch point of view. Near the shoreline, a coxswain in a small boat grips the tiller and looks up at the basin. He can hear the fight inland, but what he watches is the water itself. The current is changing. The boat tugs and shifts, demanding constant correction. He is thinking in distances and minutes and how far he can push into the harbor without being stranded when the tide slips lower. Clock. The water window is shrinking. Not hours, minutes. If the boats wait too long, they will not leave. If they leave too soon, they abandon men who are still fighting their way back. He sees silhouettes running toward him, then dropping into cover. He hears shouted warnings. He tries to count heads, but the night refuses to give clean numbers. Back toward the gate, defenders begin to climb onto Campbeltown. They move cautiously at first, rifles lifted, stepping around twisted metal and broken fittings, expecting traps in the obvious places. A few point toward the smashed bow and the wedged gate as if they are inspecting the proof of their own victory. They do not know that the ship is not a dead thing. Below, sealed away, the cord and timing marks remain dry. That dryness is the point. Saltwater ruins, paper ruins, powder ruins, time. Someone planned for the sea's cruelty, and for the first time all night that plan is paying rent. Records differ on how much the defenders understood at this moment, but the outcome is consistent. They come close to the wrong conclusion. They treat the ship like a prize, like a curiosity, like a problem already solved. Mini payoff, a raiding group reaches the waterline and pushes off in a small craft, engines chattering low as they try to stay unseen. The boat slides into the channel and you can feel the relief in the way shoulders drop just slightly, because for them the harbor is no longer a maze. It is behind them. But relief is dangerous. It makes you look away. On the dock, another team arrives a moment later and finds the water edge crowded, chaotic, the path not as clean as the plan promised. A boat that should be there is gone. Another is struggling to turn. Another has taken on water and sits too low. The rule against false hope is simple. You do not count an exit until you are moving through it. So they improvise. They wave. They shout. They crouch and wait for a gap in fire, then run again, boots splashing, hands grabbing at ropes that are slick with spray. Clock. The hidden clock inside Campbeltown is still moving toward its moment, and no one on the quay can hear it. Stakes. If the boats cannot clear the harbor, the survivors become trapped on land. If the defenders fully secure the destroyer in the gate area, the raid's final purpose might still succeed, but at a cost that no one can measure from a desk. Switch point of view. On the bridge of a defending craft inside the port, an officer watches the jammed ship in the gate and feels a sharp satisfaction. The enemy has done something reckless and paid for it. He believes the danger is ending. He believes the story will be about how the harbor held. Then he hears an order passed down the line to board and inspect. He does not like it. Something about the ship feels wrong, like a mouth that is still holding a bite. But he obeys because rules are rules and he needs certainty. He steps closer. And on the shoreline, a commando looks back over his shoulder, seeing searchlights crawling over the destroyer like insects, seeing men climbing aboard, seeing the port tightening its grip. He feels the weight of time press on his ribs. Because now the hardest choice is not whether to fight. It is whether to wait for one more boat, one more man, one more chance, or leave before the harbor closes completely. And behind all of it, inside the wedged hull, the dry cord and its timing marks keep counting down to the moment when the ship will finally speak loud enough for everyone to understand. Section 5. The waiting charge and the false victory. Dawn does not arrive like a switch. It leaks. The black water turns charcoal, then dull gray, and the sky takes on that tired color that makes everything look exposed. Smoke hangs low over the port, drifting in slow sheets between cranes and rooftops. The gunfire fades into bursts instead of a constant roar, not because danger is gone, but because the night's confusion has been replaced by morning's accounting. Clock, the tide keeps falling. The harbor window that mattered so much in the run-in now matters in reverse. With every minute escape, routes become shallower, slower, more obvious. Out in the channel, a small craft carries survivors away, engine held low, weight kept tight. A commando sits hunched against the side, wet to the bone, hands shaking from effort and cold. He does not look back at first. He cannot. Looking back feels like inviting the port to follow him. Then he does look, and what he sees makes no sense to a man who has just survived the run. Campbeltown is still there. She sits jammed into the dock gate in full daylight, almost calm, almost ordinary in silhouette. Defenders move around her like ants around a fallen branch. Some stand on the deck. Some lean over railings. Some point toward the bow, as if explaining what happened to someone who arrived late. It looks at first glance like the raid failed to finish its own story. Stakes. If the ship is nothing but a wreck, the dock gate may still be damaged, but the port will repair what it can. The dry dock might return to service sooner than anyone on the raiding force can accept. The entire gamble would become a footnote instead of a closed door. And for the men still trapped on land, the stakes are even more brutal. Morning makes hiding harder. It turns shadows into thin lies. It turns every alley into a corridor that can be watched. The rule against daylight is simple. You do not blend in when the light is honest. So those who remain are forced into choices that feel like bad luck and worse math. Move and be seen. Stay and be found. Attempt the water and risk the shallows. Switch point of view. On the dock, a German officer walks along the quay with an air of control returning to his shoulders. He studies the destroyer and the smashed gate with the satisfaction of a problem contained. This is how morning often feels after a night raid. Chaos survives, but only as debris. He orders men to inspect the ship. They climb aboard more confidently now, rifles slung, hands on hips. They look down into open hatches. They poke at fittings. They talk and their voices carry because the wind is lighter. One technical detail matters here, and it is not about weapons. It is about trust. The destroyer has been altered to look like something else, and in daylight those alterations look crude, almost theatrical. That crudeness reads like desperation. Desperation reads like defeat. Many pay off for the defenders they believe they have won. They laugh. They take souvenirs. They gather in small clusters on the deck and gesture toward the jammed bow like tourists at a wreck site. They do not behave like men standing on top of a threat. They behave like men standing on top of a story that is finished. But deep inside the ship, the story is not finished. In a sealed space, protected from water and prying hands, the cord and timing marks remain dry. Someone hours ago insisted on that dryness. Someone treated moisture as an enemy, as real as any gun. Records differ on the precise delay and exactly how it was implemented, but the outcome is consistent. The explosives are still waiting. The mechanism is still patient. It is still counting down. Clock. The hidden clock is now close enough that you could imagine it as a sound if only you knew where to put your ear. Switch point of view. In a nearby building, a German clerk is trying to write a report about the night. His hand cramps. His ink smears. He keeps stopping to listen to the port outside, to the occasional crack of a shot, the clatter of boots on stone, the voices rising and falling. He writes that the intruders have been repelled. He writes that the destroyer is captured and wedged against the gate. He writes that the harbor is secure. He does not write about the feeling he cannot name, the sense that something is wrong because the ship is too quiet. Quiet things are supposed to be safe. This quiet feels like a held breath. Back on the water, the commando in the small craft watches the destroyer shrink behind him. He wants to believe it is over. He wants to believe the men who did not make it to the boats have been taken or escaped by some other route or are hiding. Then he remembers something small from the night. A man below decks, checking a sealed covering with fingers that were numb. A glance between two crewmen that said without words, keep it dry, keep it safe, keep it alive. The rule against false endings is simple. The most dangerous moment is when you think the danger is done. Stakes. If the delay fails, it could fail in the wrong direction. Too early, and the men near the ship, raiders and defenders alike, pay for proximity. Too late, and it risks being discovered, disarmed, or removed from the place it was meant to destroy. The commando grips the gunwale as the boat rides a swell. He whispers to no one, a private hope that the mechanism is still doing what it was built to do. On the dock, defenders cluster closer. An officer steps down into a hatch to look deeper. Another leans over a railing and calls a joke to a friend. A small group stands at the bow feet, planted on metal that is still pressed into the dock gate, as if the gate itself is a trophy. Clock. A few minutes, perhaps less. No one can be certain because no one on deck is allowed to know exactly when. Then the port hears a sound that does not belong to gunfire. Not a crack, not a rattle. A deep, sudden violence that turns the air into pressure. The destroyer becomes a flash, then a roar, then a concussion that slams through stone and steel. The dock gate shudders. The water heaves. A column of smoke and debris rises where the ship was sitting so calmly. The harbor freezes the way people freeze when reality changes shape. And in that moment, the defender's false victory is erased. The ship has spoken. Mini payoff for the raiders. The dock gate is wrecked in the way it was meant to be, and the dry dock is crippled. The purpose of the raid becomes real, not as a rumor or a hope, but as broken infrastructure that cannot be wished back into place. Switch point of view. On the small craft, the commando feels the concussion even across the water, a dull punch through the hull. He turns and sees the rising smoke. He does not cheer. He does not celebrate. He just exhales long and shaky, as if he has been holding his own breath since the impact. Because now the question is not whether the dock can be used. Now the question is what this success cost, and who is still alive on the wrong side of the water. And as the smoke spreads over St. Nazaire, the raid's most dangerous truth becomes clear. You can win the objective and still lose men to the minutes you could not control. Section 6. The survivors and the long walk into captivity. After the blast, the port is no longer a place. It is a reaction. Smoke climbs and spreads, turning the morning into a gray ceiling. Shattered debris settles into the water. Sirens rise, then stagger into silence, as if even the alarms do not know what to say. Men on both sides stare at the hole in reality where the destroyer sat, trying to understand how a wreck became a weapon after it had stopped moving. Clock. The first hour after the explosion is a new countdown. Not to the objective, but to escape. Every minute the harbor recovers is a minute the surrounding streets fill with more defenders, more checkpoints, more eyes that are now fully awake. Out on the water, survivors keep going. The small craft that made it beyond the port does not slow. The channel opens. The horizon is a thin line of relief. But relief is never evenly distributed in a raid like this. On land, men who did not reach the boats are scattered in pockets. Some are wounded, some are simply exhausted, and all of them are running out of choices. The city around the port is not a battlefield with front lines. It is a maze of streets and walls and sudden dead ends. The rule against getting away after a raid is simple. You must become smaller than the search. So they strip down their presence. They hide gear. They move without speaking. They step into doorways and breathe so quietly it hurts. They listen for boots, then for the pause that means a patrol has turned. Switch point of view. A French civilian watches from behind a cracked curtain. He has been awake since the first shots. He has heard the impact, the fighting, then the explosion that made the whole neighborhood vibrate. He sees men in unfamiliar uniforms moving along the street with a speed that is not confidence but necessity. He wants to help. He wants to shut the curtain and pretend he saw nothing. Both impulses feel like survival. He chooses a third option, the only one that does not risk his family more than he can bear. He steps back. He leaves a door unlatched. He does not wave. He does not signal. He simply makes a path slightly easier for someone who might need it. Mini payoff. A commando slips into the entryway and disappears from the street for a few precious minutes. Not safety, just invisibility. Stakes. For these men, the objective has already been achieved. The dock is crippled. The story will be told in terms of steel and strategy, but their personal stakes are more immediate. They have to survive the hours after the raid when everyone is looking and no one is surprised anymore. One technical detail is enough to understand why hiding becomes harder. Their uniforms and equipment are distinctive. They cannot blend into the port's ordinary rhythm. Every strap and boot and silhouette is a signal flare in daylight. The rule against daylight searches is simple. You cannot outrun what is already everywhere. So the men who remain are forced to slow down, to move in bursts, to accept that the raid has turned into a different kind of fight. Not a charge, but endurance. Switch point of view. A German patrol leader walks with his rifle held ready, eyes scanning. He is not angry in a dramatic way. He is focused. The explosion has changed his confidence into hunger, not for revenge, but for closure. He wants the story to end in a neat line of captured men and recovered order. He stops at an intersection and listens to reports. He directs his men with short gestures. He thinks like a net being pulled tight. Streets become strands. Alleys become strands. Every time someone claims they saw movement, he pulls that strand tighter. Clock. By midday, the net will be so tight that any movement will be noticed. On the edges of the port, a small group of commandos tries to reach water again, hoping for a boat that might still be waiting. They find only shallows and exposed mud. The tide has slid out and the sea has withdrawn like a witness refusing to stay. Mini payoff. They find a narrow path through debris and reach a wall that offers temporary cover. They are not seen. Yet, stakes. If they stay, they will be found. If they move, they may be found faster. If they surrender, they trade one danger for another, but at least they stop bleeding minutes. Records differ on how many men escaped versus how many were captured in the aftermath. But the outcome is consistent. Many raiders do not make it back to the sea. They are taken in ones and twos in small groups after hours of hiding and running, and realizing that the harbor has become an island of hostility around them. The rule against stubbornness is simple. You cannot will an exit into existence. So eventually choices narrow into surrender. A commando raises his hands in a street where the morning light makes everything look unforgiving. His face is streaked with grime. His eyes are tired. A German soldier steps forward, rifle up, and then lowers it slightly when he sees the man is done running. There is no speech, no dramatic final line, just the sound of a strap being unbuckled, gear being set down, boots shifting on stone. Switch point of view. On a nearby sidewalk, a French child watches from a doorway and sees something he will remember forever. A man who came from the sea now stands still, surrounded, breathing hard. The child does not understand strategy or docks or convoys. He understands only that the man looks like someone who has just walked out of a storm. Clock. The minutes are no longer about explosions. They are about the walk. The captured are gathered and moved. Streets pass. Faces appear in windows. Some look away. Some look on with a kind of quiet respect that cannot be shown openly. The raiders keep their heads level, not defiant, not broken, simply present. Stakes. The outcome will be written later. For now, the stakes are dignity, survival. The hope that if they are captured, they will be treated as soldiers, not as criminals. Hope is still a currency, and it is now spent in small amounts. The rule against despair is simple. You stay upright, so they stay upright. And through the noise of the city, through the distant sirens, through the constant motion of men reclaiming order, one thought returns like a pulse. That explosion happened because something stayed dry. A cord, timing marks. A sealed promise kept safe from salt and chance. It is a small detail, and no one marching through these streets can see it anymore. But they can feel what it did. And as the captives are led away from the port, the question that remains is not whether the raid succeeded. It is whether the men who carried it will ever see the sea again. Section 7. The aftermath and the echo in the Atlantic. Days later, the sea looks innocent again. Out beyond the coast, the Atlantic rolls the way it always does, gray and indifferent, as if it never carried a destroyer into a harbor as a weapon. But the men who made it back cannot see the water the same way. The surface is the same. Their minds are not. On a warship steaming home, a survivor stands at the rail and watches the wake. His hands are still cracked from salt. His ears still hold the memory of searchlights and gunfire. He has a bruise on his shoulder from the impact that he keeps touching absent-mindedly, as if checking that it is real. Clock. In the days after a raid, time counts down differently. Reports must be written. Names must be recorded. The details must be separated from the chaos before the chaos swallows them. Stakes. The raid's purpose was strategic, but the stakes now are human. Who came back? Who did not? Who is missing and might still be alive in a cell somewhere waiting for a war to end? The objective can be called a success, but a success has edges, and those edges cut. The rule against forgetting is simple. You do not get to choose what stays with you, so small images keep returning. A searchlight catching spray like snow, boots slipping on stone, the sound of a ship's bow grinding into steel, the smell of paint dust in the air after impact. Switch point of view. In St. Nazaire, the dry dock sits wounded. Workers and soldiers move around it, measuring damage, making plans. Some stare at the wreckage with anger. Some stare with a kind of reluctant respect. The gate that was meant to hold back the sea has been broken by a ship that stopped moving, and then hours later became a thunderclap. Records differ on the exact timeline of repairs and the exact extent of the destruction beyond the dock gate, but the outcome is consistent. The dock is put out of effective use for a long time, long enough to matter, long enough to change decisions. One technical detail is enough here, and it is not about engines or armor. The dock was the only Atlantic facility of its kind capable of handling the largest ships Germany might send into the ocean war. That is why it was targeted, and that is why its loss echoes far beyond one port. Mini payoff. In Allied planning rooms, a line on a map becomes less threatening. A possibility becomes less likely. Convoys gain a fraction more breathing room, but that payoff is not celebrated by the men who carried the raid. It is measured. Switch point of view. In a German office, an officer signs paperwork with a hand that trembles slightly from fatigue. He reads reports about the explosion and the confusion about the inspection that turned into catastrophe. He underlines phrases with a pencil. He circles the word delayed like it is an insult. He wants someone to blame. He wants a clean explanation that makes the event small enough to control. But the truth is stubborn. The ship was not a wreck. It was a timed statement. Back across the water, survivors are questioned. They answer and they do not embellish. They speak in clipped sentences because the more words you use, the more likely you are to lose the thread. Some of them cannot remember everything. Some remember too much. They talk about the run-in. They talk about the impact. They talk about the escape that felt like being chased by light itself. And somewhere in the middle of those answers, the small detail keeps showing up. The insistence on keeping the timing gear dry, the way someone treated moisture as a threat that could ruin the whole operation, the way a cord and a set of marks became as important as any weapon. The rule against complacency is simple. You assume the simplest failure will be the one that happens. So planners learn and the lesson is cold. The enemy does not always need a bigger gun. Sometimes it needs a drier compartment. Clock. The war does not pause to admire one raid. It moves on. New operations, new losses, new headlines, stakes for the captured. The clock is personal. Days in a camp, seasons, the long wait for liberation or exchange. For the survivors, the stakes are quieter. Nightmares, the sudden startle at a loud engine, the way a harbor light can make your stomach drop. Switch point of view. In a cell, a captured commando sits on a bunk and listens to distant trains. He does not know what the newspapers will say. He does not know if the dock is still broken. He knows only what he did and what it cost. He runs his thumb along a rough edge of wood and thinks about the moment of impact, the moment the ship became a wedge. Then he thinks about the explosion he did not see, only felt in his imagination later when rumors filtered through guards and other prisoners. A wreck that waited, a delayed roar, mini payoff. The rumor reaches him, and for a moment it warms him not as triumph but as meaning. The work mattered. The rule against despair is simple. You find proof that the pain was not wasted, so he holds that proof like a match in a dark room. Outside, the war continues to grind forward, but the raid's echo remains in the Atlantic. A dock that cannot be used, a threat that cannot be serviced there, a reminder that audacity can be engineered and that time can be turned into a weapon. And yet the most haunting part is not the explosion. It is the waiting, the hours when the ship sat quiet, wedged into steel while men believed the danger had ended. And that is why this story does not feel like an action scene. It feels like a breath held too long. Because once you understand that, you realize the final choice is still ahead. Not the choice to ram the gate, the choice to live with what you did. After the adrenaline is gone, after the sea looks innocent again, and after the small detail that made it all work becomes the only thing you can hear in the silence. Section 8. The small detail that held the fuse. The last thing you remember about St. Nazaire is not the blast. It is what comes after. Smoke drifts over the water like a slow curtain, and the port that seemed so solid an hour ago now looks bruised, interrupted. The dock gate is no longer a clean line. The basin is not calm. The cranes stand the same, but everything beneath them feels reshaped. Out at sea, the survivors do not stop to count the damage. They cannot. The boats ride low and fast, slipping through gray swells, eyes fixed on the horizon as if it is a door that might close if they look away. A man wraps his hands around a cup he cannot quite feel. Another stares at his boots, still wet, still crusted with salt, as if the water followed him. Clock! The danger is no longer measured in seconds to impact. It is measured in minutes to interception, hours to safety, days to the first quiet night when your body finally realizes it is allowed to shake. Stakes. The dock is crippled, yes, and that matters. But the stakes inside each man's chest are simpler. Who made it? Who did not? Who is out there still somewhere behind that smoke, trying to stay alive in a city that has turned hostile? Switch point of view. Onshore, the morning has teeth. Captured raiders are moved in small groups. Boots scrape stone. Hands stay visible. Faces stay level. Some men keep glancing toward the port, not in hope of rescue, but in the way you glance at a place that has taken something from you. They can smell the smoke from the destroyed gate even as they are marched farther away from it. They can hear distant shouting, distant engines. The city is still reacting, still trying to restore order that no longer feels certain. A German officer walks along the route and studies the prisoners as if trying to read the raid from their expressions. He wants a tidy story. He wants a reason that fits in a report. He sees fatigue. He sees stubborn calm. He does not see the true weapon that ended his dock. Because the true weapon was time, and time is hard to arrest. The rule against a raid that keeps moving after it ends is simple. You cannot fight what you cannot see. So he focuses on what he can see. The men, their gear, their faces. But even here, even in captivity, the raid still has one last echo. A prisoner passes a yard where workers are already assembling. Lumber, tools, a line of men with clipboards. Everyone moving with that busy urgency that says repair begins now before someone else can strike again. The prisoner looks at the motion and realizes the dock is not just damaged. It is feared. That fear is the real payoff, mini payoff. Without a word spoken, he understands the objective landed. Switch point of view. Back at sea, a senior officer listens to the first reports come in fragmented, imperfect, carried by exhausted voices and cold hands. He hears that the destroyer struck the gate. He hears that fighting on the docks was fierce. He hears that many did not return. Then he hears the part that sounds like a ghost story. The ship stayed there for hours, quiet, wedged, inspected. Then it detonated. Records differ on the precise delay and exactly how it was protected from interference. But the outcome is consistent. The explosives did what they were meant to do at the moment when the defenders had stopped treating the ship like a threat. The officer closes his eyes for a second, not in celebration, but in something like grief mixed with relief. He can see the plan in his mind like a diagram, but he can also see the men who carried it, and those are not diagrams. Those are human beings. One technical detail is enough to make the whole night make sense. The explosives could not detonate on impact. If they did, the ship would never have driven the gate. So the plan depended on delay, and delay depends on reliability, and reliability depends on something most people ignore: moisture. Salt water does not need permission to ruin a plan. It finds seams. It finds cloth. It finds paper. It finds the smallest weakness and turns it into failure. The sea is patient like that, which means the raid did not hinge only on speed or courage. It hinged on keeping one small thing dry. Switch point of view. In St. Nazaire, defenders stand at the edge of the wrecked area, staring at the new shape of the dock gate. Some are angry. Some are simply stunned. A man points and speaks too fast, as if more words will rebuild steel. Another shakes his head, repeating the same sentence like a charm. The harbor had believed it won. It had believed the danger was finished. That belief was the trap. The rule against certainty is simple. The moment you relax is the moment you are most exposed. And the raid used that rule like a weapon. Across the channel, days turn into a kind of quiet that feels unnatural. The survivors begin to separate into two groups: the ones who can sleep and the ones who cannot. The ones who talk about the night and the ones who keep it locked behind their teeth. The sound of a lamp turning on can make a man flinch. A harbor light can make a stomach drop. And somewhere in a camp, a captured commando hears rumors that the dock gate is gone, that the ship did not just crash, it waited. He does not smile. He does not celebrate. He simply sits a little straighter. Mini payoff. The pain now has meaning, because meaning is what keeps you upright when time becomes heavy. Lesson for the audience. The raid did not survive on bravery alone. It survived on a small, almost invisible choice, keeping a cord and its timing marks sealed and dry. That dryness turned delay into certainty. It let a wreck sit quietly, be inspected, be underestimated, and still speak at exactly the right moment. You watch war stories and you expect the big things to decide, the ending, the guns, the speed, the blast. But sometimes the outcome hinges on whether someone protected a small detail from salt and chance. That's soldiers' lost voices, where the smallest details still carry the loudest echoes. Here on Soldiers' Lost Voices, we chase the small details that change the whole outcome. Small details change everything. If one detail in this story stuck with you, tell me what it was in the comments and why. And drop a question or the next story you want us to dig into.